Welcome to the Forbidden Apple podcast, where we explore the relationship between queer people and religion.
They say faith can move mountains, and we want to know what faith means to you.
Join our conversation as we discuss overcoming prejudices, find common ground, and celebrate our differences. A former Orthodox Jew
and a Spanish-raised Catholic meet weekly and sink our teeth into the Forbidden Apple.
Hi, everybody.
And welcome to another episode of The Forbidden Apple.
I am Melissa Weiss.
And I am Pelayo Alvarez.
And today we have
James Schwartz.
James is an author and a poet, and he wrote a book called The Literary Party, which is about growing up gay and Amish in America.
We didn't know a lot of things that you'll discover during the interview. For example, if the Amish has a religion or not, if they're accepting of gay people or not. We're really curious about it. And the best way was to interview someone who had already left the community.
Yeah, so because what happens is that now that he's already left the community, he can look at it objectively in some way and share a little bit more of the secrets or the things compared to the secular world now that he lives in, so he can see how different it is.
Thank you so much for listening.
We're so happy to talk to you. So we've been talking to you a bit, getting to know you. I'm so happy our listeners get to know you a bit. What I really liked what you said before was how the difference, the contrast between shunning and aloha of the welcoming, right, and that you were explaining. So sure. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, so first of all, for listeners that aren't that familiar with the Amish are sort of borderline fundamentalist Christians. They're set apart from society, and they're very homophobic and anti-gay. And so if you are LGBTQ and unfortunate enough to find yourself growing up LGBTQ and Amish, you have some difficult decisions to make in your life. To come out of the closet means risking being shunned. And that means your family cutting off communication with you. That means your entire faith-based community, which in most cases is, everyone's complete world. And they will completely cut you out. They will kick you out because they view this through, the lens of fundamentalist Christianity. And so they consider being gay a sin. I know, Amish in the closet who, because they need or want the safety of the community, they stay closeted and they'll get married to fit in. I was more of a rebel, especially. Especially once I started reading, I talked about earlier, getting my library card and reading James Baldwin and Truman Capote and a lot of various gay writers and poets. So I sort of had a guidepost, in my life. And so
was there something common in between the Amish to have a public library card?
It's not unusual, but most Amish parents monitor their children's reading, to make sure it's appropriate. And my father just let me read whatever I wanted to. I guess he assumed I had better judgment. Oh, you don't even know what I was reading. But yeah, so to go to that environment, to Hawaii, which my native Hawaiian friends are completely horrified when I talk to them about the concept of shunning. They're like, James, that is not aloha. I mean, they take that very seriously here. And, it comes from, it's about showing love and kindness and respect to everyone in your life. And, this concept of cherry picking Bible verses is completely, it just seems very cruel and strange to them, which in a lot of ways it is. Mm-hmm. We're living in a more increasingly tolerant and liberal society. We're moving towards a more modern society. Some days it feels like we're getting there more slowly than others.
Yeah.
But, if you live in anywhere in America, gay marriage is legal.
Mhm.
But if you're Amish, no gay preacher or bishop is going to marry you and your same-sex partner.
Right.
So there's a lot of human rights that are being violated when you grow up Amish. You're forbidden from taking your education beyond the 8th grade. So you're being denied your fundamental right to education. Getting shunned for being gay, that's a violation of your pursuit of happiness.
Are there any people within the Amish that are trying to fight some of this? People that have been go up against the status quo?
Very few, very few. But one person that comes to mind is my friend Tora Bontrager, who has the Amish Heritage Foundation and is seeking to overturn a Supreme Court ruling, Wisconsin versus Yoder, which is why the Amish are allowed to continue denying their children education. And so if anyone's interested in her conferences that are coming up or her books or her podcasts, you can find her at amishheritage.org.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also an LGBTQ Amish support group, and that is lgbtamish.com.
I feel like a lot of people have, a lot of people, I say Pelayo, but have the idea of just Amish people having the typical clothes and the typical habits, but I don't know if you're necessarily related with religion. So I wanted to know more about, because it looked like they're just these people living in the farm, but I, for example, didn't know that they were fundamentally Christian.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
So which rituals do you have, from when you wake up to when you go to bed, that are religious and affect your Amish life?
Okay, so the Amish speak their own language, which is Pennsylvania Dutch. It's like a dialect of German. In church, the German preaches using High German. And so a lot of people don't even understand half of church service because they don't speak High German. We were not German Amish. Our ancestors came from Switzerland. We were Swiss Amish. And there seems to be sort of some minor cultural differences between the two. Swiss seem a little more tolerant than our German cousins.
So what's your day-to-day life because in my community, religion was everything from when you wake up into the morning to when you go to sleep, and we all went to the same schools. And it's funny because when I was a kid, we visited the Amish. I visited the Amish as an adult too, but as a kid we visited and we thought, wow, they're so strange and different. And we were Hasidic kids, all wearing this very specific garb, but we thought you were your people were just whoa, so extreme. But as I get older, sometimes how I explain people about my community, I say we're Amish with electricity. So I don't know if I'm correct, but tell me, it seems to us that it's a huge part. It's everything in your life, right? When you're growing up Amish.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in terms of ritual, yes. Mm-hmm. So when you get up in the morning, you have morning prayer. And that involves everyone, your entire family, getting on their knees in whatever room, and just the father will usually lead prayers from the hymn of the prayer book, and then church again. You're exposed to High German preaching. Yeah, it's incredibly long, and you sit on hard wooden benches, and you're forced to listen to all this preaching and High German that goes on and on and on. So you feel really disconnected from all of it, or at least I did, because you can't understand most of it. Yeah. And then what you can understand is basically don't do this, you're going to hell. Don't do anything or you're going to hell, and it's so strict. And, they have incredibly strict church rules about for if you're female, the length of your dress. The strings on your cap have to be tied under your chin. If it's not, you're going to get in trouble for that. So it's a very controlling environment that breeds a lot of fear. So that's where you're at when you're, queer or you're gay in the Amish community. It's a real mind fuck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about, like, you said that you were in church for a very long time. Do you celebrate it, like, is it on Sundays like other Catholic or Christian?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's every other Sunday, and it's at someone's house.
Oh.
So, right. Okay. Okay. So to back up for a moment. So the Amish immigrated from Europe in like the mid to late 1800s. And they were originally called Anabaptists. And there was a lot of political turmoil in Europe at that time. And they were, Martin Luther's Reformation period had happened. And so they were rebelling from the Catholic Church over the issue, well, several issues, but over the issue of infant baptism.
Mm-hmm.
They believed in adult baptism. You should be able to make that choice as an adult, as opposed to, right?
Yeah.
There were some Anabaptists in Switzerland and France and Germany, the Netherlands, and I don't think they weren't allowed in Spain though. King Ferdinand was not all that impressed with Anabaptists, but so they immigrated to America. And as time went on, they were just known as the Amish. So, but in a lot of ways, because of their closed society, they still sort of live like it's the mid 1800s when gay rights or, gay anything was not even on their radar whatsoever. So when that happens today, you grandly announce to everyone, hey, I'm coming out, I'm gay. They're going to send you to conversion therapy. They're going to tell you that you're sinful or you're practicing sin and you need to repent. And so basically you're just going to get like a lot of shame and guilt thrown at you. Most Amish used to be farmers, but nowadays farmland is incredibly expensive. And so a lot of Amish kids, farming is not an option anymore. So to farm, they'll have to move somewhere where they can find cheaper farmland. But so a lot of times, instead of doing that, they'll work an outside job. Like in the Midwest, it would be the trailer factories, the RV industry. And so, when they're going to work, their boss could be gay, their coworkers are gay. And so, like everybody else, they have smartphones or iPhones now. So it's not like they're completely out of touch with society anymore the way they used to be, right? But yeah, they're going back to this environment where your bishop is not going to marry you and your partner if you're gay. You're still going to get shunned, and it's probably getting very strange, especially for the younger kids today, seeing other people have freedoms, and them not having that.
The purpose of not having these modern things, what is that?
Okay, so that comes from like trying to keep your community strong and closed off from the outside world. If you have a television, you're going to be busy watching television, and you're not going to be spending time reading the Bible or spending time with your family. So yeah, they're trying to keep everything sort of contained.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
James, so I wanted to know more about your experience during rumspringa, which is the period where Amish people, like we've heard, are exploring if they want to continue in the Amish community or not. If they continue, they will get baptized. And if they don't, they will have to start a new life outside of the Amish community. Tell us a little bit more about that.
There's a lot of myths around rumspringa because people believe what they see on reality TV shows, which are not quite an accurate depiction, especially across the board, because there's a lot of variances within, Amish from community to community. So when I went to rumspringa parties, it basically consisted of going to someone's barn, and there would be like, say, 20, 30 people there, and someone has country music on really loud on a stereo system, and everyone's just getting fucked up on beer. I mean, drinking beer, right? And there's some dancing, and for the straight couples, they're going out to their buggies to make out. I mean, and that's pretty much the extent of it. Okay, about like when you're like maybe 17 or so, if your parents think you're responsible enough, it kind of depends on when they think you can handle it. They'll loosen the controls that they have over you a little bit, and you can go out, with your fellow youth on a Saturday night and do a little drinking and, let your hair down a little bit. They see this as sort of a way to sow your wild oats, right? Because teenagers are teenagers. They need that release, and they understand that.
So if you're a kid and then you come out before rumspringa and before you get baptized,
that was me.
They don't shun you.
Right. That was me. So it's like splitting hairs, but I mean, and you're still treated badly. I mean, but you're not officially a member of the church, so you're not officially shunned. Right?
So you didn't get baptized.
I did not get baptized. I have not ever been baptized. And the way it looks, I'm probably not going to get baptized. So this is me.
So what did you choose to do instead of get baptizing? Where did you go? Did they when you tell your family, I'm not going to follow this path, what's the reaction, and what do you do next?
Yeah, well, that's that's like the question that every gay Amish kid has is like, oh my God, what do I do now? Because you have to leave your community. So you have to you're going to have to go out. You're going to have to leave your community. You're going to have to find employment. And a lot of Amish kids, they don't have like social security cards, or they don't have birth certificates. So there's, and they don't have any education. So there's a lot of challenges already stacked against you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in a fairly, my father wasn't as strict as some Amish, and my mother had passed away when I was 9 years old from breast cancer.
Sorry.
So yeah, it was just Dad and I have some older siblings, but they were older than me, and they had already left the farm, and they were off living their own lives. So they weren't really in the picture. So yeah, I was a big reader. And so by my late teens, I knew I didn't want to be Amish. I knew that I was gay. And so, yeah, I just relied on my non-Amish friends that were in my life. And I lived with them, and I got employment, and started going to gay clubs and gay bars and meeting my gay community. And yeah, I remember telling a drag queen, she asked about me, and I said, yeah, I'm, from the Amish. And she says, oh, honey, have we been waiting on you?
Oh, wow. What was the biggest culture shock? The first time you went to a gay club, or the first, yeah.
Yeah, just the acceptance, right? The accepting environment that you get in a gay, at a gay club. And this was, before RuPaul's Drag Race, before a lot of people knew that there was a gay club in their city. It was pretty underground, because we're talking like, the year 2000, 1999, 2000, 2001. Mm-hmm. And times were still a little different back then. So yeah, for me to see, and one of the really cool things about going to a gay club is it attracts a wide variety of people across the social spectrum and brings them all together under one roof. And so to be in that environment and everybody having a really loving, accepting attitude towards you was definitely shocking, in a good way. Right.
Because you mentioned you went to public school and you didn't, because your dad was looser. Did you wear the traditional Amish clothes?
I did up until like maybe 17, 18. And I made the decision that I wasn't going to go to join the church. And then after that, I was just sort of like in jeans and t-shirt. But then when I was going to the clubs, I started dressing in drag, right? The queens dressed me up. and I did a couple pageants.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to all the hardworking drag queens, because you have to put so much energy into this. And my calling, I always felt, was literature and poetry and writing. And so, but it was a lot of fun, definitely. And it was something all gay kids should do. Dress in drag.
Especially coming from a world where you were told what to wear and suddenly you can explore and experience and have fun.
Right.
Was poetry like one of your only connections to being queer? Because I guess that you didn't have like many references growing up.
How did you know you were queer? Did you have words to describe what you were experiencing?
No, absolutely not. Probably from books or whatever. There was no talk of, like, oh, so-and-so's gay, or that would have been completely hush-hush, right?
Right.
So and then like sex education. Like I was probably, oh my God, I was probably like 19 or 20 before I even knew what sex was. Like I had no idea. Like you are forbidden from talking about this. And, and most Amish kids really have no idea what sex is, because, they're so strict. Of course, I did a lot of reading, so you can figure out some things, but you don't know everything. And it's definitely a problem.
Right. So how did you come to know? Because you said you were young and you knew that you were gay. How did you know?
Yeah, okay. So I think I was I was still, I don't know, maybe 7th or 8th grade, and I went home with an Amish friend, a classmate, and to stay the night at his house. And we ended up having sex.
Wow.
When it comes down to it, when it's in the moment, you figure it out. You do.
and then you thought, uh-oh, I like boys.
Yeah, well, okay, so they heard us, right? Like they overheard us. And so the following day at school, he was kind of like, hey, we can't hang out anymore. My parents really did, they're not very happy with us. I was like, oh, yeah. So, today he's married and has kids, and lives in the Amish closet. And
Amish, wow,
in the Amish closet. So you found words for that experience later, but you knew the desires that you had.
It was an incredible relief to be in the gay community and to be around people like me. And, I needed that so much. When I published my first book of poetry, which was The Literary Party Growing Up Gay and Amish in America, and that was published in 2011. And, people were like, well, how the Amish are, they're very homophobic. And I said, my attitude was, well, they're not going to be when I get done with them. And, but, things really haven't changed much. And I was talking with, an Amish acquaintance that is still in the community. And he said more recently, like the Amish would never talk about, sex much, or, or especially homosexuality at all, right? And so they're saying that today, and, it's been a while since I've been in the community, but he says, so for the past few years, the Amish bishops are specifically preaching homophobic sermons at church.
Oh.
And I'm being cited as an example. Is being cited as an example of what happens when you leave and how you're going to hell, and so on and so forth.
So I'm wondering if maybe there's gay people in the church who are, because they mention you, are like, oh, I want to find him and I'm going to read the book. And maybe you're helping people read it.
Do people reach out to you? Have they contacted you?
Absolutely. Every so often someone will reach out to me, or they'll reach out through lgbtamish.com. And because, they're desperate for connection, just like I was, and they're, now it's a little easier, because if they have an iPhone or something, they can sort of do some researching. I remember, being at the public library when I was a kid, and I didn't even see any books written by Amish people. It was always books by other people written about the Amish, right? And of course, there's no gay Amish books. The best I could find was like Oscar Wilde, which that was really helpful, by the way.
Nice. But now there is a book, Gay and Amish, because you wrote it.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
And we'll put the link below, by the way. We'll put your information below so our listeners can find it and they can read. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It's always challenging to write a book, but I did it, and it got a lot of really good reviews, and I was really happy about it. And so then cut to today, and when they're saying, "Oh, by the way, your book's being used," and I was like, "Oh my God, okay, this is not my intention."
It's not always, Melissa is one of my best friends and she's around and she can tell advice about that, but not always someone has like this kind of like radical change in their lives. So I would like we always ask for advice because I think it's some takeaway from listening to the podcast that's important. Mm-hmm. And what would you give to someone that has left a community like the Amish and starts like a complete new life? What helped you and what could help others?
Well, remember the Tennessee Williams line in A Streetcar Named Desire, where he says, I have always depended upon the kindness of strangers. There's you have to be willing to sort of put yourself out there and trust that people that you don't know will look after your best interests. Yeah, you do. You at some point when you leave, like if you're leaving, say, the Amish community or a closed religious community, you have to take a chance on people that you might not trust because you're taught not to trust them. You're taught that they're worldly or sinful or whatever. And so, I don't recommend just going up to the first person that you see on the street and throwing it out there. But at some point, you have to connect with someone that you trust and that can help you, because there's times in life when we all need help, and some people have a harder time asking for help than others. But so you have to ask for help on some level from someone.
That's great advice.
That's faith,
and that's also faith. Yeah, and that's for you was drag queens, right?
The drag community, the gay community in general.
I'm sure as a kid, that was something you would never think of, trusting a drag queen or king.
Right. I would have been taught that they were evil or whatever.
Wow. So you're making your own meaning, your own spirituality, your own community. You've been doing all of that in this whole transition.
And so like to touch on what we talked about earlier was, so I come out here and I had not learned in public schools that Hawaii is under illegal United States, the occupation from the military. I had no idea that there was a coup against Queen Liliuokalani, who was Hawaii's last monarch. I learned about the Hawaii being a sovereign monarchy and being forced to be a United State. And this touches on something else, which is that when the Amish originally came over to America, they bought up a lot of the land that the Native Americans had stolen from them, that they were forced off their land. So a lot of the Amish actually, bought up all of the land from the Native Americans. And so like here, I'm sort of like decolonizing and seeing the world through an indigenous aspect. And I think that we all have to do that, especially in terms of like the problems that we're facing today, like climate change. We need the indigenous, we need the Native Americans, we need the Native Pacific Islanders at the forefront of all of this, definitely. Yeah,
that's very important. Thank you so much for sharing, James. I mean, there's always more questions, right? Especially being Amish is such an insular world that I have all these questions. Thanks for sharing. And we're going to put the information below. Is there any way that you want people, if they want to contact you, do you have a website? Do you have an email address?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's literaryparty.blogspot.com. You can find me also on Twitter and Instagram, and the handle is Queer as Poetry.
Nice.
Very, very nice.
Very nice speaking to you.
Yes.
And aloha is also for goodbyes. Aloha, James.
Yes, aloha.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
This has been another episode of
The Forbidden Apple.
I'm Melissa Weiss.
And I am Pelayo Alvarez.
Have a wonderful day.